My views and opinions do not represent those of the United States government, the U.S. Army, nor the Maryland Army National Guard. These views are strictly mine. So I enlisted in early July of 2019, and I'd say there's probably a couple of reasons of why I decided to enlist. The first reason being is I think I was just bored. I needed a challenge. I was working full time during the day and then working part time at night. And so after doing that for a few years, I just got bored and needed something different, honestly. And so I figured that out of all things, joining the Army would definitely be a challenge, to say the least. And then the second reason why I decided to enlist is I saw it as a career opportunity. At that time, I was in the process of applying to law school, and I figured that being in the Army would only help my application. And I also assumed that being in the Army would help me secure job opportunities post-graduation. So when I told my parents, my mom and dad specifically, that I wanted to enlist in the Army, their reaction was definitely, if one word comes to mind, was definitely surprised. It was definitely a decision that I had never spoken with them about before. So not only for me, but for them, it was something out of the blue. And I think any parent that hears that their child is enlisting, I think their first thought, right, or one of their first thoughts rather, is being deployed into an active war zone, anything that can happen because of that. And so, in addition to being shocked, I think they were just worried, right? And they just wanted to make sure that I was okay and that I was enlisting for the right reasons. But I think as I talked why I wanted to enlist and they sort of heard my side of the story, I think they were much more calm, to say the least. And they eventually supported me, not only during the application process, but also during basic training as well, right? They stuck with me all along the way, writing me letters, answering my phone calls when I was able to talk with them. But to say the least, they were definitely supportive once they heard the reasoning as to why I wanted to enlist. So I would say my obligations to the Army have impacted my educational studies quite a bit, or at least have affected it in a certain sense. I think being in the National Guard specifically makes it even more difficult because I have to contend with not only my guard duties, but also with my school duties as well. And I think being in law school specifically, especially in your first year where there is so much stress and focus on your grades and keeping up with the reading and everything, when I do have those drill weekends, it becomes even more difficult to dedicate the time that I need to on that week's reading. So the Army has definitely given me skills that I use in everyday life, skills that I never even thought I would gain, especially in my guard unit, vehicle maintenance, right? When we have to look at our Humvees and other vehicles, right? Whether that means knowing how to check the windshield washer fluid, or knowing where to check their air filter, things that I never even would have thought I would have had to do on my own car. Now I have to do on these military vehicles, right? And knowing how to, right, like I was saying before, knowing how to apply that to my own car, and whether I have to go to Jiffy Lube or have any other maintenance done on my car, knowing how to kind of address those problems and what to look for, so I know that I'm not getting taken advantage of and getting charged hundreds of dollars over what it would normally be. So at first, when I first enlisted, being openly gay was something that I was definitely nervous about. It was something that was in the front of my mind, right? I think there's a huge stereotype, not just military, but in general, right? But especially in the military, of being openly gay and what that entails, right? Whether it's increase in bullying or, right, it can run the whole gamut. And so for me, I was definitely worried about that, being surrounded by people that I never knew before. And eventually I knew the topic would come up, right? And so the first couple of weeks at basic training, I was definitely more reserved and didn't really kind of come out, or not come out in that sense, but come out with my sort of natural personality. But eventually I knew that I would be supported. I felt comfortable enough in that basic training setting to be a little bit more comfortable with who I was and tell other people that I was gay. All right, so that's an interesting question. Would I have enlisted in the Army knowing what I know now? I think at the end of the day, yes. For as much as basic training in AIT sucks, right? I'm glad I did it, but I definitely don't want to do it again, to say the least. But I think at the end of the day, the benefits outweigh sort of the negative, right? As far as, I think the Army, or maybe the military in general, definitely gives you a set of skills that you can transfer to whether you do decide to stay active duty within the Army, or other military branch rather, or whether you decide to take that to your civilian side, whether that's your, maybe that's with school, or, a 9-to-5 job, right? But I think at the end of the day, it gives you a set of skills that you can use, right? Like I was saying before, but not only that, these are skills that you can use throughout your whole life, right? Especially whether it's that mental fortitude, right? Knowing that you can challenge yourself in any adversity that you're facing, right? Or even simple things, health insurance, benefits if you have a family or kids at home, right? Not only giving yourself that opportunity, but giving other family members the opportunity to succeed, right? So I think it's sort of the mentality of the light at the end of the tunnel, right? Doing this now sucks, right? But I know that further on down the road, 10, 15, 20 years, I'm going to still be reaping those benefits from what I learned in basic or AIT or my monthly guard commitments.